Tonight, an exclusive behind the scenes. I'm a candidate. Here's what I think. America's fingers are crossed. USA, USA. Find out why some are outraged. Don't flip the channel.
Very well done. On the show tonight, the Trump scheme, the Senate team, and a Google machine deep dream. But first, hello from the shoe at The Ohio State University here in Columbus, Ohio, where John Kasich this afternoon became the 16th Republican to enter the presidential sweepstakes. Here's what it sounded like at The Ohio State University. Sans teleprompter.
I have the experience and the testing which shapes you and prepares you for the most important job in the world. I am here to ask you for your prayers, for your support, for your efforts, because I have decided to run for President of the United States.
After that announcement event, I spent a few minutes with Governor Kasich talking to him about his day. We'll have more on that later. But, John, for now, how do you do?
Mark, good to see you there. Look, I thought this speech was vintage Kasich. The good, the bad, and the ugly. One of our friends, John Ralston, out in Nevada, tweeted that it seemed like a speech that was written by James Joyce. I'm not sure if that's a compliment or criticism, but there was a unruly kind of rambling feel to it, but it was also very charming in all of that, and it reflected Kasich. He showed his heart. He talked about being a compassionate Republican over and over again, very different from a lot of the messages we've heard from other Republican 2016ers. If you find John Kasich charming, you found this speech charming. If you found it unfocused and you're a critic of John Kasich, you're going to find a lot to criticize in this speech, too.
You know, I think John Kasich needs to show people that he's interesting, that he has stuff to say that they can't get elsewhere, and he's got a record. And I thought he put all that on display today. There are certainly critics who say it was too long, maybe too thin on policy, not enough focus. But I think Kasich did, and I talked to him about it afterwards, he did what he wanted to do. That is the product he is selling. And to get a chance in your announcement speech to do it, I think is great. He was low-key in some ways, but again, interesting, at least interesting to me. People in the room were interested in what he had to say, and I think on television, as I watch clips of it, there's a quality there that I think is distinctive.
There's no doubt he is a welcome addition to the race. And now, returning to our regularly scheduled programming, Donald Trump. Trump started the day dominating the news cycle because of a new ABC Washington Post poll that puts him at 24%, high above the rest of the pack, and also because of a back and forth with the Des Moines Register's editorial board, which slammed him as a, quote, feckless blowhard and called on him to drop out of the race. Then, at his first campaign event since the outbreak of his feud with John McCain, Trump revealed some personal information about McCain's pal, Lindsey Graham.
He gave me his number, and I found the card. I wrote the number down. I don't know if it's the right number. Let's try it. 202.
Whoa. Hold on there. Donald, you got to call Lindsey Graham's office if you want to talk to him. Anyway, Trump is on a roll, although in that new national poll, 56% of Republicans said that Trump's views do not reflect, quote, core values of the Republican Party. So, Mark, I ask you, should that number worry the Donald?
I don't think so. The fact that Trump can get over a quarter of the vote with that many people not liking his views, with that many people, some number of people not liking his views on immigration, I think it shows his power. He dominates the news cycle until he's anywhere but first in the polls. Any day he wants, and even some days when he doesn't, he can dominate the news and blot out every other bit of political news on either side.
Mark, I hate to accuse you of short-term thinking, but if this is a man who genuinely wants to be president, I would say the fact that, according to this poll, 31% of Republicans, 3 in 10, say they wouldn't consider voting for Trump if he were the party's nominee. That's 3 out of 10 Republicans who would never vote for him as the party's nominee. That doesn't make him a very plausible candidate for president. Well, I have no doubt he can get a quarter of the vote.
Sure, but I mean, yeah, maybe other people have strong hands. And I should say with the drumming, when you do a show from a college campus, you might get some drumming. Look, he's in a strong position in some ways, weak in others. But today, if a guy's got multiple billions of dollars, he's first in the polls, and he can dominate earned media whenever he wants, it's not a perfect hand, but it's pretty good.
Well, I'm not arguing with you about the fact that he's not playing the worst hand. The worst hand in the world. All I'm trying to say is that there's a lot in these numbers that if the man wants to be president of the United States and not just get a lot of attention and not just rile the waters up, then there's a lot in these polls for him to worry about in terms of whether he can ever actually fill the big chair. All right, we're moving on. The Senate is buzzing with one-upsmanship. Ted Cruz and Rand Paul are both trying to attach hot-button issues to the big transportation bill, like Obamacare, abortion, and the export-import bank battle. Paul is also working on a bill to give guns to soldiers on military bases and recruiting stations because of the Chattanooga shooting. Throw in the other two presidential candidates who live in the Senate, or at least work in the Senate, Marco Rubio and Lindsey Graham. And I have a question for you, Mark. Who is using their platform in the upper chamber best right now to increase his chances to win the Republican nomination?
Rubio, Cruz, and Paul are playing mostly on somewhat niche issues. Lindsey Graham is the Trump foil, and he's taking the lead on Iran. Right now, he's the senator who's best using the platform.
There's a certain kind of, the problem with the Cruz and Paul moves, it seems to me, is there's a certain kind of nakedness to them. They are just basically chopping up hunks of red meat and trying to throw them to the base. Since I think none of the things that they are proposing are actually going to happen, the base will not be satisfied, and so therefore those will be useless gestures. I think Marco Rubio, who's been playing it relatively cool in the Senate and not trying to do some of these more gimmicky things, is actually the one who's doing the best because he's actually trying to be a presidential candidate and not a legislative gimmickmeister.
Yeah, I will say, though, that the Scott Walker line, which is the centerpiece of his rhetoric now and pretty effective in saying all these senators in Washington who rail against things, they don't win. They fight, but they don't win. I think these guys are going to have to prove that they can actually get something done. If the Ex-Im Bank, for instance, gets renewed, which I think is a better chance than not now, those guys will have lost another fight. And Walker will have another talking point to say, great to go on C-SPAN on the floor and make a speech, great to go on Fox, but if you don't actually win the fight, you're not doing what I've done in Wisconsin. Again, I think it's Walker's most effective line.
I think we agree the governors have the upper hand in this battle on the whole. All right, up next, Republican ad man extraordinaire and the guy whose swanky pad we crash at when we're in L.A., Fred Davis, is back. But first, our conversation with the newest candidate in the game, John Kasich, right after this.
After John Kasich made his speech today here at The Ohio State University in Columbus, I caught up with the governor to talk to him about his big day.
How's today going? Just I want to talk about today. What was it like in the household this morning when you woke up? Normal day?
Yeah, it was pretty normal. I wasn't very jumpy about it. I made a couple calls to people who were my close friends, and I said, by the way, I was thinking this morning about something, and then I kind of made a decision. They said, what? I said, well, I've decided I'm going to run for president of the United States.
And
they burst out laughing. So it was good. And then I came down here with the kids and with Karen, and it was just extremely calm, and I really enjoyed delivering the speech.
You seemed to get emotional at least a couple times during the speech talking about family. Or did I misread that?
Of course, emotions are always popping up, but I controlled my emotions very well, I think, and I felt really good about. Look, what I thought about this morning is get up and tell people what you want them to hear. Just don't go deliver a speech.
Did you feel good? Like, do you feel you got done what you wanted to do?
I did. I felt like there's nothing I would take back. I feel it went very well.
And who was here today who you hadn't seen in a while? Anybody?
Oh, there's a lot. I just saw a guy from Alabama that helped me the last time. There were a lot of my friends here, though. I mean, it really made efforts to get here, and it's great. But there were a lot of people. I mean, there were like I don't know how many thousands, and it's great.
So, what emotions would you say you experienced today?
Well, I was calm. I would say that. I had fun. And when it was all done, I felt like it was really, really great. And I thought Sununu did a great job today in his speech and gave him a big hug. And,
I've never seen you so calm.
Well, I think sometimes people just don't understand me. Some people have known me from 20 years ago, and they're commenting who I am today. And, I'm not who I was 20 years ago. I liked who I was 20 years ago, but I like who I am now. And, everything was fine. And, no big gyrations, it just was good. I enjoyed it. You know what? It was really fun to deliver the talk and to have so many people there. That's what's kind of a little bit overwhelming.
Governor. Thanks. Good luck in New Hampshire and other places.
See you there. All right.
Thanks, Governor.
Our thanks to the new governor, John Kasich, for making some time for us, and our thanks in advance to media strategist for John Kasich's 527 organization. It's called New Day for America. Fred Davis is here in Columbus today. So you've been working with Governor Kasich. You shot him for the ads that you've got up in New Hampshire. But today the wall comes down and you can't talk to him anymore?
It was actually, I swear to you, sad. At noon today, when he said I'm running for president, I told him the last time I saw him, right before he walked on stage, I said I won't get to talk to you till in the Oval Office.
So no email, no phone calls, no in-person contact.
No, none.
So what do you do now to figure out how to help John Kasich from what is now a 527 will become a super PAC? If you can't talk to him, you can't talk to the campaign strategist. How do you figure out what to do?
You read what you write. You and John will set the stage. No, you do. You follow it like anybody else follows the race. But we have the advantage that I know John Kasich really well now. I didn't 2 months ago. I know his strategists really well. I know how they think. I've worked with them before, and I think Kasich was wise to bring in people who had worked together before.
You've got this ad, the 60-second ad, and a new one that went up today in New Hampshire, paid for by the 527. Any idea if that ad is working, if it's getting a good reception in New Hampshire?
It's getting an enormous reception.
How do you know?
We have little polling that tells us that.
So you've polled since the ad went up? And what do people say about the ad?
They just say good. Literally, you know, I would say this, but it's true. I've never had such good response for any initial ads.
Well, I mean,
in any campaign.
Has his horse race number moved?
Yes.
Like from what to what?
Well, you can't judge it that way because we're doing telephone polls and seeing what moves people, and the ads have been they've been fabulously successful. I'm not saying this because I made the ads. It's because John did so well in the ads.
Yeah. So the Super PAC, the 527 raised like $10 million in the first reported period.
A little over that.
Do you all have a sense of what your budget's going to be between now and Iowa?
We have a written budget.
Yeah. And how much does it assume you'll take in?
I can't quite offer
tens of millions?
Enough millions to win. Because I think our guy is so different from the rest, as you and I talked about.
Right. Okay. John?
Hey, Fred, I'm sorry I can't be there with you, but I'm curious about a couple things. The first is a lot of people are placing a lot of importance on the question of who will be on that first debate stage in Cleveland not very long from now. How important do you think it is for Kasich to be one of the people who's up there among that group of 10 when the debate season starts?
Of course it would be great, John. I would love that, and I honestly believe we will be there. But it's not the end of the world if we're not. You know, we were talking about Trump and everything. The race isn't now. The race is a long, long time from now, and every incremental step is important. But being on that stage is not the end of the world, especially with what the people in New Hampshire have done with their debate.
Fred, someone you know pretty well, I believe, Abby Huntsman, the daughter of John Huntsman, tweeted today that the Kasich rollout reminds me so much of my dad's 4 years ago. Same team, same timing, similar strategy. Hope it ends better for him. There are some Republicans who think this is Huntsman all over again. What do you say to those people?
That the people are entirely different. I adore John Huntsman. I adore John Kasich. They are about as different as night and day. There have been stories written like that, as you know, recently, a big one today. I chuckle when I read them. John Huntsman is a passive guy. John Kasich is so far from passive you can't believe it. Major, major differences between the two.
Last question. As you think about the next few months, how will you know if John Kasich's being successful? It's just polls, or are there other things you'll look at?
No, you know, you look at a lot of things. Polls are very important. How the debate performance goes is very important. Feedback is actually important, just the general feedback. For example, you talked about John Sununu. Sununu was a client of mine, a friend of mine, and he would call and tell me anecdotal evidence he would hear about the ads that was really spectacular, but it was detailed. It was information you don't get out of a poll.
And he's a former New Hampshire senator, so
it helps
immensely.
He knows
about how to get elected.
He does.
In the Bush Super PAC, there is now about $100 million, maybe more for all we know. How do you think they'll spend that money?
I would imagine they'll spend it the same way we'll spend ours, but in much more grandiose terms.
Well, I don't get the sense you guys are going to run a ton of negative ads anytime soon.
Oh, no.
You think the Bush folks will run negative ads?
I would guess they would.
Yeah. What about other people? Who else do you think might run negative ads? Rubio, Walker,
You know,
Rand
I don't
Paul.
want to give away our strategy, but that is the typical way to think to get elected. That is not the John Kasich way to get elected.
I think Rubio also doesn't intend to run negative edge, but I wouldn't be surprised if you saw maybe a few others.
I'll be very surprised.
A few others.
Yeah.
Last question. You're not going to be able to communicate, as we said, directly with John Kasich anymore. What will you do to replace him in your life?
I don't know. It's a terrible loss. When it was over today, I sat in this little chair in a corner in the Union Hall there, sad and blue, reading my emails, and it was terrible.
He's off to New Hampshire, and you're stuck here with us. Fred, thanks. We'll talk to you soon. You're really nice to join us. Fred Davis works with the Super PAC /527 supporting John Kasich. When we come back, the best bits of Governor Kasich's announcement speech today after this word from our sponsors.
John Kasich's speech in Columbus, Ohio today might be the last major presidential campaign announcement of the 2016 cycle. We have identified the most interesting parts of the governor's announcement, which was delivered without a teleprompter. Here's the part where Kasich made his case as a compassionate conservative.
And how about those that struggle to make ends meet? You know, some people just say, oh, well, just work harder or pull yourself out by your bootstraps. I believe in all that. Some people just don't have the fortune that many of us have. If you're drug addicted, we're going to try to rehab you and get you on your feet. If you're mentally ill, prison is no place for you. Some treatment and some help is where you need to be. You're the working poor. We're going to give you an opportunity to take a pay raise and not bang you over the head because you're trying to get ahead.
Mark, I'm sure there are people who will call me a squish, but I have to say that when Kasich talks that way, when he talks about his compassion, when he speaks his heart, I find it to be probably the most compelling thing about him, and certainly the thing that sets him apart from a lot of the other Republicans most distinctively.
And there's no question that it helped get him elected governor of this state and made him a popular and somewhat successful governor. You look at the other governors now, Bobby Jindal, Chris Christie, Scott Walker, they are in their states divisive figures. You can travel a lot around those states and try to find a Democrat who feels good about their governor. There's some, but not a lot. In this state, because of language like that, even in the day I've been here, you meet Democrats, even if they didn't vote for him, who have warm feelings towards John Kasich, and I think that's a big part of his appeal if he's going to do well in this race.
60% approval rating, hard to top that.
Let's listen to some more. Let's listen to some more. This is Governor Kasich talking about his Buckeye State record of governance.
A lot of hopelessness here, particularly among the poor and minorities. People said maybe Ohio's best days are behind him. I thought that was just a bunch of baloney. And I said not only will we get this budget balanced, but we'll cut taxes. 4.5 years later, $8 billion in the hole, $2 billion surplus. A loss of 350,000 jobs, a gain of 350,000 jobs. And tax cuts of $5 billion, the largest in the country.
John, when governors run, we talk about can they sell an X miracle, their state's miracle. Is there an Ohio economic miracle or other miracle that you think he can sell to Republican voters?
I do. I think, look, the Ohio's economic story, there's a lot of credit to go around. I mean, some of it belongs to the Obama administration and the auto bailout. But look, if you compare it, again, as you did on the earlier thing we just discussed, if you compare it to the state of Louisiana, the state of Wisconsin, the state of New Jersey, compared to other governors, the Ohio economy is miraculous and it's very strong. In case it can make the case that he had played a big part in making it that way.
The other thing is he is very much of this state. He very much feels the culture of the state, the people of the state, the sports teams of this state. And that, I think, again, if he's going to convince people that there's a narrative of his life, of his personal life and how it matches up with his professional life and in this job, I think Ohio is a big calling card for him. And again, he's passionate about his state in a way that very few governors I've ever covered are.
Well, and look, and just to make the obvious point, Ohio, pretty important state to win in the fall of 2016, and John Kasich would have a reasonable chance of doing that given how popular he is. So the Ohio story is big for him. All right, finally, let's get to a final little piece of video here. Here's what John Kasich said about being the budget guy par excellence.
And we wrote a budget for the United States of America. And why? Everybody knows me as a budget guy. It's not about numbers. It's about vision. It's about values. And we do not have the right, as grown-ups, to ring up debts to suit ourselves and pass them on to the next generation. We don't have that right. You know what? They said it couldn't be done. They said it was too big, too hard, too much politics. And we proved them wrong again, and we balanced that federal budget. We balanced it.
Look, Mark, there's no doubt that John Kasich played a big part in a period of, in terms of balancing the budget back in the 90s. There's no doubt about that. I have a question about whether that issue is as salient now, given the fact that deficits are falling, given that there are other economic issues that matter more in 2016 as it would have some years in the past. But it is a really important part of his record, and he's right to stress it.
And he's right in theory that he knows sort of how to deal with budgets. I just think making that tangible, making that part of an exciting narrative of possibility and optimism, I think it's going to be hard to do. He can argue it. We'll see how he talks about it when he's out there as a full-time candidate. But I think that is something he's proud of, but difficult to sell politically.
Right. Economic mobility is a lot more uplifting. All right. Up next, sit back, relax, and I mean really relax, and get ready to see candidates like Scott Walker in a whole new, totally trippy, wildly hallucinogenic way. The science fiction author Philip K. Dick asked if robots dream of electric sheep. Google wants to know, will robots dream in a way we can see? And the answer is yes, by being hooked up to a neural network and engaging in what the company calls inceptionism. The network looks for patterns in ordinary pictures and, as if the AI is daydreaming, reveals what those pictures resemble to its robot brain. This all gets pretty psychedelic. So control room, cue the sitar. Obviously, we here, with all due respect, wanted to see what the 2016 candidates would look like. So our man A.J. Feather fed their mugshots into the network. Take a look at this. There's Rick Santorum, who, by the way, will be live in our studio tomorrow. That's a little trippy. Apparently, Google thought the man behind him was some sort of furry animal. There's Jeb Bush. He's got some eyes growing on his sleeve right there. Take a look. Jeb Bush. Those eyes. That's weird. All right, here comes Marco Rubio. Something happening with Marco Rubio's hand. Take a look at Marco. And there's Scott Walker with his hand becoming a combination of dogs. Google's neural network really loves dogs.
Remember, we're on at twice a day at 5 and at 8. Until tomorrow, thanks for watching. Here from Columbus, we say sayonara.